See, you walk into the middle of us and it zooms out, man.
Yeah, this is great stuff. You're talking. So, are we recorded? All right, we're good to go. Well, everyone, thank you so much for coming today to talk about AI in the classroom, opportunities and challenges. This was a title that I'm getting feedback. Oh, no worries. This is a title that was actually generated by AI. We asked for 3 titles and it gave us a couple of good choices and we thought this was the best one. So still human intervention involved there. Today we have myself. I'm Craig Engstrom, the director of the Center for Teaching Excellence. Just a quick shout out. We do have a green room studio that's about to go live. So if you're looking for a place to record high quality lectures in a very well lit room with a cool backdrop and drop down cameras to do tutorials, that space will be coming soon. Today we also have Aaron Scott. He is an instructor in design, and we'll be talking about AI and how he's using it with his classroom. And then we have Pinckney Benedict, who probably needs no introduction, but he's kind of the AI guy on campus. He's been doing this for several years. Really, I think probably most people have suddenly become very aware of it because of ChatGPT. So we'll kind of probably hit on some of those things. Today, I'm going to spend about 5 minutes giving some framing commentary, particularly around how AI can be thought of as assistive technology. Aaron will talk about design. Pinckney will talk about his use of it in a variety of ways. So why are we doing this session? Although AI has been around and slowly becoming an everyday part of our lives, the release of ChatGPT, of course, for all of you, has propelled the issue into the forefront. And I think people are concerned. Most of the emails I am getting are, oh, I think someone has used it and they're cheating. And those are probably already the wrong kind of questions to be asking or thinking about, in my opinion. There are things to be concerned about, but if we're not thinking about how to incorporate it into our teaching dynamically, we're going to be doing our students a disservice, and again, in my opinion. But we're welcoming all of your questions, comments, concerns, and we'll address them from our expertise point of view. And those in the call today can also share their points of view. So I would actually just say, first thing you should do is just calm down a little bit. AI is not going to suddenly take everything. What it'll probably do is make some of the stuff that we do that is very routine, less routine, and that we can focus on the more important things that we do. Let me give some examples here in a moment, but you're already using AI and you weren't concerned about it. For example, you probably enjoyed when you were typing something, it suggested the text for you and you could complete it really quickly. Or when you were on your small phone and you were typing, it offered some suggestions of text and you were happy that it did that. Probably when you were writing an email and Outlook was telling you, are you sure that's right grammar before you sent it off? You enjoyed that. So you're already using AI. You're just not thinking of it as that. And the reason that those things were designed was not to make people's lives easier in the sense of like, oh, we want to do something for the everyday person. It was designed actually for people who had dexterity issues or cognitive challenges. So most of the design is actually thinking about the learning or the human experience at the forefront. So I want to just kind of frame it that way as well. Auto transcription, like if we turned it on right now, it would be using AI to help with that process. So anyway, I've heard faculty are very concerned about particularly the cheating issues, but I think what we want to address today is not the cheating issues. Few things. So how do we partner with AI? I have just 5 points that I wanted to share, thinking of it in terms of assistance. So AI can help instructors to accomplish their learning objectives. In my course syllabus at the start of the semester, I said, I want you as students using ChatGPT. Here's sort of my parameters for it. This is what I'd like you to do with it. This is what I don't want you to do with it, and so forth. So you can set those parameters, but I see it as very assistive. For example, if I want students to deliver and improve their public speaking delivery, why should I have them waste 2 to 3 hours writing a speech outline on a topic? So now they can have the AI write for a topic they're interested in, and they can spend all that time now practicing delivery. So if my learning objective is delivery and performance, then clearly I would probably not want them spending it on all the research and writing and so forth. Now, if my objective is writing, I might have the AI help them with coming up with ideas, for example. How can it help instructors to produce content? For example, I just recently did a 3-part video series instructing students how to use a tool. And then I had to do an introduction video and I was like, I don't really want to write that. I asked ChatGPT to write it. And I produced a video in about 10 minutes, which would have taken me previous to ChatGPT 3 hours. So just an example of that. Case studies, I can ask it to write case studies. I come into the classroom, we do a case study just written off of that ChatGPT really quickly. If there's a debate going on in the classroom, we can have ChatGPT settle it for us, not in the sense that it's right, but maybe give us an alternative to think about. Third thing I would say is that it can help you to produce better teaching content, as I already gave an example of, but it can also do things like assist you with grading. Like, for example, I've been using Grammarly for now a couple of years, which is an AI tool to basically just tell the student all the punctuation errors they're making. So now when I'm grading, I'm focusing on style and a higher level of things. Here, I would like you to use a figure of speech. But before, I would be so focused on grammar, punctuation, and so forth, but Grammarly takes care of that for me. That's just another example. Fourth, it can help learners enhance their creativity, coming up with new ideas. That was something I also shared, but recently, for example, I've been having students use it to come up with metaphors and examples of simile and things to aid in their construction of speeches. And then fifth, I would say that I think this is probably the most important point, it will make our classrooms more inclusive. Here's just a couple examples. In Microsoft Teams, it has auto captioning just like Zoom does, but did you know it also has auto translator? So if you have students who are non-native speakers, you can have them turn on auto translator and it will translate into, I think it's like 36 different languages now. Is it perfect? No. But maybe if you're using high-level words, it'll be translating into their language that they might actually understand. So that's an example. Microsoft Teams has also been testing and rolling out at a limited basis affective spotlight, where it'll actually be monitoring students' facial expressions to give you real-time dynamics of this student looks confused. This student looks like overall there's an 80% positive response rate to what you just said, as an example. So it can really assist us in helping our classrooms become way more inclusive. Just a few ideas there. PowerPoint, as an example, it also gives you design recommendations now. That's helpful for people who have mobility issues or cognitive issues. It can make their PowerPoints beautiful too. It will, I think, presentation coach. So if you want your students to be more inclusive when they're presenting, PowerPoint, when you turn on presentation coach, will actually tell them if they're using too many idioms that an audience that is not native speakers would not understand. That's just another example. And finally, let's just say LinkedIn offers like a presentation coach for interviewing, so it can help our students to get better jobs. So anyway, those are the things that I just wanted to say, my 5 key takeaways. So hopefully that'll spawn some good discussion about how it can be used. I will now turn it over to Aaron.
Thank you, Greg. And that was really insightful as far as the points that you were making and bringing in. So I'm in the design department. I actually teach in industrial design and communication design. So I'm going to be addressing and talking a little bit more about the visual aspect, the text to image creation, the image to image creation, and how some of my students are actually using it. So I'm going to go through, I'm not going to give a how to do this today. We have more time hopefully in the future to have sessions if people are interested in that. But I'm going to give you an overview of what tools are available. I've tried to keep track of new AI software and platforms that are being created. And it seems like every day there's about another 100 of them coming into the marketplace. So I'll show you some of my favorites, and then we'll just talk about them and talk about how we're using them. And then we'll transition over and talk about text to other applications and text generation. So in here, and I want to reiterate with Craig, AI is here. We have an opportunity to embrace it and figure out how it can be applicable in our disciplines, or we can get left behind. And that's what we're trying to do with this workshop and with these meetings, is have a dialogue, have a discussion. Where does it belong? So when we're looking at this, AI for design is going to replace those remedial tasks, the stock image libraries, clip art, things in the past that designers would just go to because it was inexpensive or it saved time. AI has expedited that to a factor of 10 to 30x as far as speed and efficiency for image creation related to our specific topics or elements that we're looking at. So as we go through, as designers, we're not, or at least myself, I'm not fearful that AI is going to replace design. It's not going to replace designers as long as they learn to incorporate it into their activities and utilize it as a tool. It's the same thing that a paintbrush was or a pencil was back in the day. I initially learned drafting when I was coming through school, and that was replaced by a computer application. This is another application that's just being utilized in that manner. So for our design process to kind of explain it, and then I'll go into some of the examples. So we go through and we select images or content that we want to incorporate in. We can then go into ChatGPT or similar software to create prompts, or I mean, it's mind-blowing that it can actually write code now for you for like UI, UX applications, wireframing. So we go through and we use or can use software like that to actually generate those prompts for us. And those prompts are based off of your research, off of your understanding of your user, off of the viewer, or off of your own interests and manner. And then you take that from one of the, like ChatGPT, and you bring it into one of the text to image. So like Midjourney, or I'm going to show you Blue Willow, Dolly 2, Stable Diffusion. There's a whole list of them that I'll go through. Let's jump over here. All right, is my desktop?
It's showing you. Got it.
Okay. So for this is a graphic design 1 class. And so like I said, I teach in both graphic design and industrial design. I'm going to show you some of the graphic design work and the workflow there. In my opinion, AI isn't quite ready for, I mean, it's fun to play with for product development, but it doesn't do quite as good a job as it does with straight 2D images. So the students in this class in graphic design 1 were asked to create a regional or local sticker. So they had to generate the visual content using one of the AI software tools and then refine it into something that could be produced and distributed regionally. So these are some of their final results. So you can see all of the imagery in here was actually created through either Midjourney, Blue Willow, or different software. And I'll show you some of the process here. So going through initially what was actually being created and what the software was putting out. So you can see like what the prompts were. So hand-drawn, working on illustration, line work. This is what it put out. And you can see that this output is not stellar at text, faces, hands, legs. These systems still have a lot of work to go there. But what it does is it provides a starting point for the designers or for anyone. So if I'm needing to make a PowerPoint presentation and I have something specific that I need to incorporate, I can look that up and then I can tweak it and bring it in. So you can see where the AI generated this. It was refined with the more appropriate typography and then went through variations that were intentionally made by the designer until it arrives at the final result. And so when we're looking at this, this is what came out of Midjourney. So state parks, So related to Giant City State Park and imagery, and then again into refinement, illustration over the top until it ends up Lake Murfreesboro State Park as the final results. And so the students actually went through this process that normally, and why I bring this up, is that it shaved a week and a half off of the assignment. So normally I would require an additional amount of time for the students to go through and manually create these graphics, and huge time saving. So now we'll be able to actually focus on other things, on getting other design elements taught and communicated. So in here, all of these processes are built and started through the AI software, and comes out on the other end with the designer producing a functioning sticker that can be then printed and trimmed and showcased. I'll show them in a minute. I have the physical stickers there. Craig, I see there's a comment in chat.
Oh, that was mine for later.
Oh, okay. I'm not wanting to take up too much time, but I do want to just show some of the websites. So this is my Midjourney page. So I've been working on illustrations for a children's book that came through. So utilizing the images, kind of inspiration and brainstorming for these types of story kind of narrative elements. This one is Blue Willow. Let's see. Oh. So in here, Midjourney, Blue Willow, Stable Diffusion or Stable Foundation, Leonardo AI are all being ran currently through Discord. So again, if you're interested, we can do another cycle that goes through. There's just a lot of resources online that go through and communicate how to design and make these things. While I have my screen up, I do want to share a couple of examples. So again, Midjourney, Dolly, they all have their purpose or their capabilities. I'll flash this up here for just a second. So these are currently the 2D image to creation sites that I use or have tried. So by far, Midjourney is the leader in accuracy. Blue Willow I use because it's free, and I actually ran out of credits in Midjourney. Dolly, Stable Diffusion, Dream Studio. This UX UI prototype generator is a new one that I've started trying. Same with Playground. So for example, like Playground gives you options of these subsets. So to explain, a lot of this software is built on Stable Diffusion's research and their API kits. So are we going to talk about that sort of stuff later? Do we want to go into that? What is AI type conversation?
Let's let the audience direct that. See.
So that's 2D images. There's audio and music. So this is like a living file that I have open that as I come across a new one, I dump it in. There's video related. So you can actually make human avatars and make them speak, recording stuff. So the power with AI and me is when you start stringing multiple AIs together. That's where you actually really start to save time. So when you take ChatGPT, you generate prompts, you create video or not video, still images, you take those images over, you create video, they're all interconnected with each other. So text creation, great sites. There's code development, audio and music, 3D image generation. Like I said, it's so right now. Plagiarism checkers So in here, the GPT-0, so if this is the topic that we didn't want to talk about, but just so you know, there are 3 sites that are very good at plagiarism detection right now and AI detection. And let's see. Oh,
You might just assume everybody's gonna want that, so.
I'll figure out a way to share it. I'm just like showing it so that, because it's like one of those, like I find a site, I plug it in, and put it on. So, and there are other listings online, like people have got going crazy on it. These 2 sites have, and this is why I haven't included any visuals or anything with it. So this is an AI database. So depending on what you're wanting to do, it will go through. So say I want to generate art. It lists what they are, what their is, how much they cost. So I can see like Playground is going to be $15 a month. Midjourney is a free trial, freemium. So you can go through and source or cite, like looking for these. So I came across these fairly recently. And it's been a very nice thing. And then the other one, they don't cover everything. So you kind of have to use both the sides. And then there's the, like, again, generative art. So you can see like the fonts, a listing or a code of these. So the future tools, good site. And then the other one is the Futurepedia. And
Yeah, and Future Tools has a good YouTube channel as well.
yeah, they're both really, really good there. So I want to, I guess, pass it off and then we'll go if there's questions, I can answer more and share them more. So let me stop sharing the screen.
I do have to ask, is this the real Pinckney that's here? Or is this, an avatar
You know,
version of it?
I have so many avatars and all right, let's see if I can. And you're Carol, you've got mics on that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Is that what I'm doing? So that I won't turn on.
Yeah.
Oh. Is that here? Yes, okay. Yeah, so this is, I'm just gonna follow up on, for, you know, for what's worth, I'm Benedict. I'm in the School of Literature, Writing, and Digital Humanities. And I guess I'm in the writing side of that. And in my classes and in my own work, I've been using various AIs for 2 or 3 years now. I got access to OpenAI's GPT-3, which is the largest and most well-known large language model AI that exists, and it's the basis for ChatGPT and so on and so forth. I got access to that right after access became available. One of the beauties of being associated with an institution of higher learning is that folks in industries are eager to give you early access to their inventions. So, but the ChatGPT stuff, I mean, in a way, it's sort of welcome. I'm glad now when I say I use, large language model AIs. I don't have to do quite so much explanation, but it has resulted in some fairly absurd ideas about AI that even 10 minutes acquaintanceship with ChatGPT will disabuse you of, right? I mean, all the headlines are, this is going to replace you. And if you're kind of worthless at what you do, potentially that's true. But it is what's going to happen is that collaboration with AI it's already the default for many of us. It's one of the pleasures of being in this room is I'm with folks who are already collaborating on a regular basis with AI. I've been for years But collaboration is going to be the default. It's not that, I'm a writer. It's not that AI is going to replace writers, but as we say in the digital expressions lab over here at Morris Library, AI is not going to replace writers, but writers who collaborate with AI will replace writers who do not, because the efficiencies are amazing, and to having an assistant who will do all your word was the remedial work, right, for me, is a truly wonderful thing. And in the classroom, my students have taken to AI. Last week, I had 4 of my graduate students in the MFA program, and we had a session with some collaborators of ours who are AI engineers at Oxford University. So we had to get up very early in the morning to meet with them, but they're interested in our uses of AI because they're very different from their uses of AI. These non-deterministic results, right? That doesn't do us any good if the art is deterministic, right? It's the non-deterministic nature of AI that is powerful for us. And they want to know what tools we want them to build. Because a lot of the artist tools for AI are kind of goofy, right? And they're sort of geared toward, I don't know, a lot of them are geared toward anime, and like they're just way too good at making things that I think are potentially disgusting. I think there's a lot of, so we need, serious artists need serious tools, and we're starting to get them. But I'll just show you, Aaron mentioned coding, right? And ChatGPT, I'm learning Python from ChatGPT, and I'm learning how to concatenate AIs using Python. And as Aaron said, right, it is this sort of train car effect of using different AIs that is really making AI powerful in my work, right? That I as soon as I found out that using a language AI to prompt an art AI got much better art than I could create by myself. Yeah, you realize, oh, and now if I can program, so I'll just show you. I mean, while Aaron was talking, and whenever Aaron talks, I'm trying to find other stuff to do. But I just wrote the prompt in ChatGPT. Please write a block of Python code, and I always say please because when they take over, I want them to remember how light I is. Please write a block of Python code that will allow me to access GPT-3 and DALL-E. So that's the large language model from OpenAI, and DALL-E is the image text to image AI from OpenAI. So through their APIs, and APIs is a word I learned from AI. API is just how you access these things, not through a web interface, but through a programming interface, to create a poem using GPT-3 and to illustrate it using DALL-E 2. And then, so it gives me this code, it gives me a copy code button there, so I can copy it and then put it into, a Python environment, which I again learned how to create using ChatGPT. And it explains everything it's doing. To access the GPT-3 API and the DALL-E API, you will need to have API credentials. I have those. You can use the following Python code. possible for me, 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and it's profoundly affected how I work. So I do want to, I want to disagree a bit with Aaron though, when he said you put up the sites that for detecting AI stuff. Did you ever run any of the emails you get from administration through those?
No, I haven't.
They're all generated by AI, just to say. Yeah, if you write like an administrator, it thinks you're a publishing.
Maybe to clarify, those are all still in beta?
Yeah. No, but there's one called Zero GPT or GPT Zero, can't remember.
GPT Zero.
Yeah, GPT Zero. And it's the best I've found, and I can fool it very easily. I can make it think I'm an AI, and I can make it be certain I'm not an AI. I can give the AI instructions so that, anyway, I actually sort of like that arms race. I think it's going to be very interesting. However, I will say that if you get an email from me, and particularly a response to an administration email, it is very likely to have been written for me by an AI. And I think that's what we need to do, right? If we're worried as teachers, just weaponize yourself, right? You learn to use the AIs and build the tools that you will use to out your students who are using them inappropriately. As far as you're concerned, I require my students to use them, and I have to hang on a second here because I'm this is an AI called Pseudo-Write, right? That's up there, good. This is an AI called Pseudo-Write, which my students use, and it's essentially a kind of word processor that uses AI for prose. And it does exactly what I would do with my students. We say, okay, the luxury train. I say, well, that's a little generic. That's a little, let's get a little more description of that. And so, I say, give me a little bit more. It's a gleaming modern marvel of engineering, a shining amalgam of steel and chrome that curves through the countryside in an elegant display of power and grace. Its body is painted in shades of blue and gold, accented by the legend. Well, I mean, that's at least as good as the writing about trains in Ayn Rand, right? The Atlas Shrugged, and probably better, right? So clearly that's a publishable product. And in the same way that I'm learning to code by having the AI write decent annotated code for me, my students get a sense of what visual detail might look like, what the other senses. You can tell it, what does this train smell like? And it'll give you a passage about what the train smells like. That's delightful. So anyway, I won't go on, Craig. I'm sure I'm over my time and I talk too much, but it is every phase of my professional life, and some of my personal life too, is now profoundly affected by my use of AI. And in general, I can produce a great deal more. I think what I'm producing is at least as good as what I produced before AI, if not better. It's in my pedagogy. My students who often don't know how to punctuate, right? They see their own work, cast back to them, well punctuated, with lots of concrete detail, visual detail, sense of touch, sense of smell, sight. Like they get to see their own work echoed to them, done by somebody who has better mechanical skills, and they learn from that. So for me, it's been a real win-win. Now, like I say, they're certainly plotting my doom. But until then, I'm definitely team AI. And when you said AI is here, one of the things I like about the whole AI debate is that we've already won. I mean, it's not it's like saying, well, television rots your brain, right? Okay, well, maybe it does, but are you going to get rid of TV? Good freaking luck, right? I mean, this is here, and it is going to change. I think there's not too much to say. that this is a Gutenberg moment. That things, the way AI is developing now is as profound a change in how we will produce at least the generative AIs, right? And I don't know enough about other AIs, but generative AIs are going to change the way we produce art and narrative and games and other things so completely that we don't know what the other side of it is going to look. But it is going to be at least as different from what we're doing now as the kind of rote memorization and script and manuscript, what was it? Illumination was before the invention of the movable type printing press. And so, you know, we can stay where we are and be eliminated, right? Like, you know, like you can still illuminate manuscripts, and I hope many of you do, and I'm confident that they're beautiful. But at the same time, like that's not where I want to be. And I know it's not where my students want to be. And I think universities who don't understand the radical nature of the change that is happening right now are really going to get left in the dust at a time when we absolutely cannot afford, right? It'd be bad enough if this weren't happening the way what is happening to demographics and enrollment and stuff like that. But given, I just, it's such a no-brainer that I'm sometimes surprised that we have to, you know, sort of defend it.
Well, that's what I'm saying too, and this will lead into some open discussion. So we'd like to invite everyone that's online or here to discuss with us. But I think you're right. Like this is a moment where we have to not only be thinking about how we will use these tools, but how we can predict a little bit to some degree where they are going. So that's part of my goal. I teach business comms, so I know my students will be using AI as an assistive technology in a variety of ways. And I want them to be able to do that to go to the next level in whatever they will do. We almost have to be thinking, because we are the institutions of higher learning, where is this technology going? Right. And how can we best prepare humans for that world? So I would start there. A few things that kind of came up that I just want to throw to have you all thinking that I was hearing about. But I was thinking just with the coding, I know we lost sound. But I was thinking about how math problems, like if a student's struggling with math, how they could explain to me how this problem was done. So it becomes sort of a tutor in a way.
Precise.
Yeah, there's so many other tools. Like I know of students that are using like Revit and architecture to kind of help them. Some other questions we could be thinking about in our discussion is, you know, eventually they have to monetize this stuff. Like they're going to want money for this labor they're putting into it. What does that mean in terms of access and accessibility? Where should universities put their money? So forth. Anyway, I'll leave it at that and then open up for discussion. Now, there are already some chats, I think.
As we're opening up for questions, I can kind of attest to the cost. So these things have all started out as free. So I was in on a lot of the betas and had free access. And then once they felt that they were trained, they rolled them over into subscription models. So I think we're going to see a lot of subscription models coming in our future. That's something I'm not real thrilled about, but it seems to be a point in life where we're just going to have to figure out how to work within those parameters.
But I'm still a little surprised at how cheap some of those subscriptions
Some of them are.
I mean, like ChatGPT to get premium access, I paid $20 a month. Well, given how much I use it, right? I mean, $20 a month seems, you know, for somebody to teach me coding and, you know, how to prompt other AIs. Sure. I mean, it seems to me a remarkable value.
The beautiful part of this too is a lot of them are breaking the charging. So like a commercial license, something that I'm going to be able to charge my clients for.
Yeah,
I can recoup that very easily. Whereas, you know, the kind of get your feet wet licenses that are like the freeware type stuff is also kind of, so I think strategically they're looking at what the future is going to hold for those situations.
Yeah.
I think one thing that's nice with like at least the writing assistive technology, I think it's just going to be a part of Microsoft.
It is,
Oh,
well,
it
that's,
already
they
is.
just put 10 billion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
so
into OpenAI, so,
Which is-
yeah, the next version of Word is
yeah,
going to be AI driven.
for sure, and that's what I'm saying. I think for at least some students, they're not going to suddenly lose access to this technology. At least we have Christopher Post noted that he hasn't tried AI, Architect, Revit, so forth. I would recommend, by the way, for faculty, like who you need to also reach out to. One, you should ask your students, they're probably already using it to some degree. And the second are people in industry. So like have them actually explain how they're using it in the field because they are likely already using it quite a lot. They're going to be the forerunners of that because it's cost savings for them. And then you would know how you might want to teach students to use that tool. So they're ready for the workplace.
But it is, I mean, I hear, people will say, oh, ChatGPT is plagiarism, right? Well, we need to be very careful about the negative. I mean, you can call it whatever negative thing you want. It is not plagiarism, right? I mean, there's just no way to square that unless you're going to say ChatGPT is a person. And I'm not willing, I'm as pro AI as you get, and I'm not willing to go there yet. But it is, but if we tag it that way early on, what are you gonna do when Word, right?
Yeah.
Has it built in? Yeah, I mean, are you gonna say, well, you can't use Word, you can't use that portion of Word? It's just we need to figure this out, but it needs not to be kind of this kind of rhetorical fist fight.
Yeah, well, that's what I want to say. Like, it's actually it's an ableist. Like, that's what I'm trying to get across. Like, by saying you cannot use these tools that are built in large part for people who have the need for them, people who are not as capable as, they have dexterity issues or they have cognitive issues, and you're like, you can't use them. I think that's messed up, man. Like, that's not right. Man.
There are plugins that are being created for everything now. Zoom has a AI plugin that will take and transcribe your entire meeting for you, and
Right.
it does it very accurately.
Yeah.
Like though it's integrating into our world.
When OpenAI has Whisper, their Whisper service, which is the best transcription service I've ever used. I use it to transcribe sections of films, stuff like that. So yes, I'm sorry. So Whisper is just really good. So good.
As far as the integration into other areas, so the commenter, the question was asking about like integration into Revit, CAD, anything like that. AI has already been put into a lot of those. It may not be the same type that we're talking about today, like ChatGPT or something like that, but there's generative algorithms already running in that software. So you can actually get it to do computational design and come up and have it do simulations. You can have it do stress analysis. You can even make, like in Revit, a lighting assessment for time of day and how it's going to impact the architecture and the construction in it. Those are all AI features. Those are things that the computer is able to do for you and save you a lot of time. We have simulation software, so we do SolidWorks and a bunch of other CAD software. And it's amazing to me just how powerful the software has become because of this type of AI inclusion and creation.
Dave Johnson asked, like, can AI help produce, read? I want to focus on the reading because this is an opportunity for me to share.
I would say that sounds like your
Yeah, a couple of things. So first off, I don't know if it's so much AI, it's just a tool that exists, but any browser, especially Microsoft Edge browser, you can actually take any web page that is built with accessibility in mind and turn it into an accessible read. And then that's actually easier to print, by the way. It gets rid of all the other garbage on a page and it just focuses on the text. And then you can hit read it and it'll read it and you can choose any accent that you want. So sometimes I just like to listen to it. And then in D2L, just so you know too, we have a product called Read Speak. It is available already. You don't have to do anything. Your students have access to it, where it will read anything on the page, including PDFs. Now, what this requires is that you create accessible content. So there is a tool in Word at the top of your ribbon, it's under review, that says check accessibility. Click that and see where your probably making a lot of errors. For example, you don't have metadata or the alt tags, you don't have table descriptions, and so forth. And finally, like, you know, even in D2L, there's an accessibility checker, you might run that. But I look forward to a world, this is an example though, imagine a PDF that is just an image, I'm sure this already exists, but where we can say, convert this to readable text, much better than the OCR readers, right? That would be great, because that would allow us to create accessible content that could be read. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah,
Dave.
actually, I kind of meant something else, which is interpret,
Oh,
right?
interpret.
So I you know, I'm a classicist, so I have them read Herodotus. Read
makes
Herodotus, right? So
Yes, I mean-
I'm sure there
Yeah,
are things that prompt questions, and I'm sure there's stuff out there. I'm just not aware of it.
Yeah, GPT-3 can do, I mean, I haven't experienced all of the functions that you're talking about, but I mean, GPT-3 is very good at summarizing. It's very good at theory of mind. It's very good at understanding, you know, what the writer isn't saying, or what assumptions underlie what the writer is saying. So it does a lot of really sophisticated interpretive tasks. You know, in addition to understanding things like point of view. You know, I mean, I've had to do extensive rewriting of, you know, you may you say, okay, you know, what if Winston Smith, you know, felt good about all this and liked Big Brother? And it's very good at figuring out how to change the prose so that we understand without being told that Winston Smith, you know, loved Big Brother even at the beginning, you know, that he does. So yeah, it's a very sophisticated, well, I won't say very, but I will say it is at an undergraduate level, it's a pretty good interpreter of prose.
Questions in here? Yeah, we have a question in the room.
One of the only things I knew about AI prior to this was with programs like Dolly, where you type in the prompt and it generates a picture. And there was the controversy surrounding that and how it learned from actual artists,
Right.
and then started to take their designs. How are you, if you are, talking to your students about the ethics of AI at this stage? It's not going anywhere.
Yeah, so that's a good question, and yeah,
It's a great, actually, in case anybody couldn't hear, because the question is there any discussions on the ethics of AI? Thank you.
So one of the things that the students are actually required to do before, at least in my classes, before they create any content, is to do a research assessment. So they go through, they look at studies, they develop style boards, mood boards, personas, so they're understanding who their user is. The thing is, AI is better at that than we are, because it has this infinite capability for learning. Now, you're talking about these specific data. Sorry, you're in the back, so I'll speak later. Okay, so it uses these specific data sets to actually learn from. And one of the arguments right now is that artists and designers should be allowed to either opt in or opt out. I agree with that. I do think if someone wants to have their content, their own content, and maybe even train their own AI off of their own content, like one of the things I'm looking forward to is being able to put all of my sketches, all of my own drawing style in, train it in Stable Diffusion, and then type in a prompt and say, generate in Aaron Scott style, and get 1,000 different results. And then I can go through and select the one that I want to use and kind of build upon. That's where it's going to become really powerful for me personally. So the ethics of it, yeah, it's in a situation where it's not exactly plagiarism unless it's duplicating it exactly, but it's learning from those things. So when they were creating their stickers, I actually told them, don't put in any artists, don't put in any designer names, don't be specific with it outside of the subject matter, because it doesn't. That, in my opinion, that's when it starts to cross into that ethical kind of gray area. When we say copy this person, that's where you start getting into trouble.
Monetize it.
Yeah, and then monetize it. Yeah, which I'm against as far as taking someone else's intellectual property and then using it for your own personal gain.
Although, but I mean, it doesn't depend though somewhat on the amount of transformation,
It does.
right? That is because that's fair use, and I mean, you probably imitate, or at least before you developed your own style, imitated other
Oh,
artists.
absolutely. I learned from, that's exactly, I mean, you learn how to sketch and draw and what
Right.
communicates more effectively. And then you have to kind of refine until you get to something that you're.
Until you
comfortable
can do your own thing, and I mean, that's, you know, because I frankly don't really use artist names in prompts, at least anymore, you know, although everything used to have Alphonse Mucha in it, like that's for whatever reason, or what is the guy's name, Greg Rutkowski. That was it. Every prompt had Greg Rutkowski, no idea who he is, but I agree, I mean, I think people ought to be able to opt out. And I love the idea of building, and I think this is the way AI is going to work in the end, right? Is that there are going to be these larger models that have scraped the internet and, you know, that kind of thing. But then we're going to be building our own models on top of those models, right? Because the general models are really quite generic. And it can actually be kind of hard to get very specific, you know, but I want to go into Project Gutenberg, get every Thackeray novel ever written, which has to be 1 million words, right? And that's got to be big enough. And then I'll just spend the rest of my career like discovering unknown Thackeray novels, you know, that have 21st century themes or something. But no, we're gonna build our own models. And I think this is just, you know, these are baby steps. They needed large models to begin with, right? And I think in the end, people aren't going to want to be left out of the model, because being left out of the model will mean, you know, well, nobody's going to imitate your work. You know what I mean? And nobody's going to, and I kind of like people to be publishing fake Pinckney Benedict stories under their own names. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. But it's a more interesting question, I think, than it often gets portrayed as.
We'll see. I mean, there are court cases right now that are
Exactly.
pending, so.
Yep. And it's
when
good there.
legal litigation
Yeah.
pans out and washes out where it falls.
Right.
I myself think that it's going to fall towards the AI content generation. Some of the early models are probably just going to be phased out, and they'll replace it with more accurate or protected content models.
Yeah, and I think curation, like what they're doing right now, is just scraping the entire internet. And I think that results in a lot of weirdness, actually. And curation of those models, that's going to be a profession, right? Is to take the large model, the 7 gigabyte model that you load into Stable Diffusion, and whittle it down to the 2 gigabytes of pertinent and useful data. And then on top of that, you'll train. I mean, Stable Diffusion, which is an art AI, text to image AI. I already trained Stable Diffusion, right? I can bring up my own image in a Stable Diffusion. I can, you know, I'll never need to take an author's pick again. And I've got pictures of me in tuxedos, you know, which you'll never see in real life.
Sure. I want to add maybe some things that I think this does raise some interesting questions and things that you can discuss with students that will make them better both citizens and future employees. As an example, I would say that, you know, we need to think about how is it that we're going to have to work and make sure that people are attributed for whatever is produced. I think something that's going to happen that'll be kind of cool is that this could be a good use case of ledger systems, so blockchain, where when you produce things, there's a residual kind of connection to it. So no matter where it moves, even through AI, it will always have its markers. So people could probably earn off of even AI generated.
That's really, I hadn't heard that before, but when you say it, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so I think that's one, but I think like some other things that I've been able to do with students is to make them just better aware of how they're implicated in the AI system. So an example is right now, some unethical companies that are trying to train their AIs to be better at interviewing candidates post job advertisements to Indeed and LinkedIn and so forth, and then have people go through what they think are legitimate interviews. Merely all they're doing is
Just
collecting
train.
the responses.
Isn't that what we're doing though, when it says, prove you're not a robot, find every bus in this image? And isn't that's not actually doing anything for security, we're just training AI.
Correct, yes, yeah, that's always been, that's why Google paid a ton of money for reCAPTCHA, because it was essentially translating Google books.
Right.
But the thing is, I think just so they're aware of that though, because then they can start thinking about, wait a minute, like this isn't all so innocent, right? Like I am implicated in all of these interactions with it that can have, you can have some discussions around, but it also can make them more like savvy. Like, so again, I use it as, here's an opportunity for you to reach out to a recruiter and say, is this a legitimate job? Because not only are they posting like with big companies, they're posting with like, you think you're getting an interview with Amazon, for example, but it's not Amazon at all. So like, I'm like, that's your opportunity. Reach out to a recruiter and say, just this is going on. I want to make sure you're legitimate applying for this job. Again, and there's like all of these kind of conversations we can have about AI.
Well, and as an artist, a certain sort of artist, as a narrative artist, I mean, that's a conversation that we've had. I mean, as long as I've been a teacher and a writer, the question of, the great Jonathan Lethem essay called the Ecstasy of Influence, right? In which he traces, other books named Lolita, for instance, long before Nabokov. Yeah. And, the idea that influence is inescapable. You know what I mean? Like you can imagine you're doing something wildly original. I mean, I remember, this was, my first book was published 35 years ago, more than that. And I remember watching, what is it? A Streetcar Named Desire, and realizing in one of my very first stories in my very first book, I had plagiarized Streetcar Named Desire. I had just taken this character who was a model for a statue, right? And I thought that was brilliant. I was just like, man, that's so great. No, I mean, but now I would just say, well, I was influenced by Streetcar Named Desire, right? But it is, influence is so difficult. And I think, and so the question is, right, like, if Alphonse Mucha, without my knowing anything about him, I include him in every prompt, right? And like, but is that different from if I were paying to think myself and I looked him up on like Boris Vallejo, right? I use Boris Vallejo all the time because I love Boris Vallejo, right? Frank Frazetta, and so I don't know, you know what I mean? Like if I were a visual artist, I would be copying those people anyway.
One of the things that I think it is doing is it's getting the students more interested in design and art history.
Sure.
Learning from styles, not just individual artists.
Right.
So when you're searching prompts, if you're looking for those movements, those styles, the different descriptive terminology for those, it brings up results without having to specify one specific point of reference. And you're getting much more broad understanding of results from it.
And dead people we're always going to have in, right? I mean, the Dutch masters will be in every art AI database forever, right? So will all the dead writers, and so in a way, like if the contemporary people opt out, we're going to end up with this, sort of renaissance of the Dutch masters or something.
So we learn from history. I mean, that's the thing, is that we should be learning from history. We just don't copy it. We bring it in, we adapt it, we modernize it. In design, we have this kind of philosophy of design is kind of cyclical. We follow a lot of things that have happened in the past, and they get updated, they get brought, they get modernized. And that's kind of what AI is doing with all that. It's putting it at our fingertips. It's making it accessible for us. So I don't know, did that answer, going all the way back? We've kind of been going around in this circle, but does that answer your question related to the ethics of using these types of software and equipment?
It did, and then some.
Okay.
These are the kinds of things where, and maybe we can start wrapping it down here. I know we're at the hour. If you all have some more questions, though, please ask. We kind of planned for 4:15, but we also wanted to visit the lab if you're interested. So, you know, any questions in the online or, you know, just kind of winding it down. I do think AI will just generate more jobs of some kind. We just don't know what those are. So there's going to be new classes all of a sudden springing up about AI and ethics and disciplines. There's going to be people who have a job of curating that just in a different way. Search engine optimization is kind of going to die in a new form because, like, I'm interested in how do I like get ranking or how do I get my company noticed in the new Bing search chat, right? There's got to be a different way to do that. So all of these create new opportunities. And those that sit back and I think resist it, it's going to be like, you know, are you in the transportation industry? This is an example, right? That was the railroads. You were in the transportation business, but you saw yourself in the railroad business. And so when cars and airlines came out, you did not adapt well enough. And so you kind of got left behind and you had all of the actual capital. And what we have in higher education is the knowledge as capital. And so how are we going to use that? So
right, and that's right. That's but we have to be imaginative enough to begin to see we don't know what it's going to be,
correct.
But we do know it's going to be radically different.
Right.
And radical difference is terrifying to academics as far as I can. Right. But we have to get past it, right? We just have to accept like change is already here. And so it's a sort of, if you're on the cusp of retirement, maybe not a big deal, but if you want to be around a while, you need to be really ready to change what you're doing. The college essay, that basic building block of humanistic training and endeavor for decades. That's over, right? That's just done. So you got to find a different way to do that.
Correct. And we'll have more sessions on this about how to do that. If you're interested in your own sessions, reach out to Craig. Final thoughts, Aaron, and so and we'll wrap it up.
Final thoughts. It is what you make of it. I echo exactly what you said. I mean, it's here, it's going to get better, and it's important that we experiment with it and figure out ways to utilize it and control it and make it do what we want it to do versus be kind of subservient to it and fall behind. So, thank you, Craig, for hosting.
Yeah, thanks, Craig. This was a really good opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Glad everybody that could come and enjoyed it, and those who might watch it later. Also, we will have more of these, I am sure of it. Maybe even specific for discipline would be even better. So thank you all for coming today. Really appreciate it. Until we see you in our next training, have a wonderful day.